I was the man with a successful career under the San Francisco skyline. Until I discovered my wife, the mother of my child, had betrayed me. She didn't just destroy our marriage. She nearly destroyed my business too. But that was just the beginning. My path of revenge was only just starting. Let's formally listen to today's story of infidelity. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. I'm a 33-year-old male married to Christina, a doctor, female 31. My life is extremely simple. At least it was simple until now. Here's some context. Christina and I met in a co-working space, where I usually go in the evenings to get away from work. I never considered working through a relationship. However, meeting her triggered a chain of events that culminated in falling in love. I had a relationship in my early 20s that ended badly. After that, I vowed never to enter another serious relationship. However, a few meetings with Christina shifted my thinking and perspective. I realized I had healed from my past and was ready to pursue new relationships. After a few days together, I asked her out. One date led to another, and I eventually proposed to her with a ring. Following 2 years of courtship, things were fine between us. We both worked during the day. We'd spend her evenings and nights together until she had to take our night calls. Day by day, our bond grew stronger. Even after we married, we would go out on our first official dates and dinners. We would occasionally surprise each other with cute gestures. This beautiful bond grew even stronger. A year ago, we were blessed with a cute baby boy. It was the happiest moment and the greatest gift for us. We're always looking forward to this moment. We were excited to become parents. We had shared our chores. A few months ago, Christina's maternity leave had ended and she needed to return to the hospital. The difficult period began. Now I had to go to work too. I considered leaving the baby with a nanny, but I decided against it. The baby being cared for solely by a nanny was the last thing I wanted. After much brainstorming and discussion with friends and family, we decided to reduce the number of extra hours we worked and return home earlier. Christina would care for the baby and I would do the housework. Things started to get settled. I also did my part. After returning home from the office, I would devote my entire time to child my baby. I wanted to devote my love and time to my family, as they were my top priority. Work took up a lot of time, but family came first soon after I noticed some changes in Christina. I have no doubt she had changed her routine. She was home by early evening, but whenever I was with her she remained silent and serious. She rarely had good conversations with me. My efforts to keep her happy did not seem to be effective, but I did my best. I was confident that one day she would understand my point and things would turn out well. 3 months ago we received good news. My parents moved back to the town. My father is a serviceman, and as a result my parents had to move around the country wherever he was posted. He retired a few months ago and has returned permanently to our ancestral home in town. Our ancestral home was a few blocks away, or nearly 2 miles, not very far. This was a huge relief. This changed a lot. It gave Christina the opportunity to properly fulfill her work responsibilities. We would leave our baby in the Navy with my mother every morning and go to work in the evening. Whoever arrived first would pick him up from there and take him home. This new routine was simple and relaxing. My son was growing well and his grandparents would take good care of him. We gradually returned to our normal routine of devoting all of our time to our work. I hoped Christina would return to her normal state of happiness, enjoy her soul. It helped her feel better. For a few weeks, we enjoyed our date, movie night, and did everything we did before the baby. Things were going well until one day a strange incident occurred. I had planned a surprise for Christina. I purchased a bouquet of red roses and her favorite cake. I also made a reservation at her favorite restaurant. I had planned to take her out on a date that night and have a wonderful time together. I asked my parents to look after our son for a few extra hours while we were away. Christina didn't get a hint of it. That evening I left work and went to the hospital to pick her up. When I arrived, I called her, but she did not respond. I waited a few minutes but she didn't call back. Then I decided to go in and look for her. When I inquired about Christina at reception, the receptionist informed me that she had left the hospital early the previous 2 days due to a conference she had to attend. This was unexpected news for me, as Christina had never gone somewhere without telling me. She was always open about her events and schedules with me. Some thoughts crossed my mind, but I dismissed them. I assumed that the burden of caring for the baby, in addition to household chores, had slipped her mind. When she returned in the evening, I waited to see if she had anything, but she didn't say anything. So I started. I told her I had visited the hospital today, and the receptionist said she was busy with a conference. Christina was taken aback for a moment, but she quickly recovered and explained that she had forgotten to tell me about the conference. Due to her hectic schedule, she apologized and everything was sorted out. She also told me about what had happened over the previous 3 days. She explained what the conference was about and what role she played in it. Though I'm satisfied with the conversation, on the inside something is striking me. I have a gut feeling that something is wrong with this situation. It's difficult to accept that someone who shared every detail with me forgot to share a significant event in her life. I'm not sure if I'm overthinking it or if my instincts are telling me something edit to include. Regarding the first few comments, I am only doubting my wife in one instance. I am not. It is not just one instance in which she forgot to inform me about the conference. The last 6 months of her coldness and indifference to me have led me to believe otherwise. I still hope you're right and that I'm overthinking it. And then my wife gets up to no good. You seem to be having a difficult time with the transition. Your wife's behavior has understandably caused concern. OP. It's possible that recent changes in your family dynamics have contributed to some communication shifts. And that's all you've been given credit for. Raising a baby, in my opinion, alters the course of some people's lives and it can be difficult to navigate. At first update 1 after my last post, I returned to my life with the hope that it was just me who was reading too much between the lines. But I believe this flag is being read on a daily basis and I cannot ignore it. After the incident, Christina's routine began to shift. She began arriving home late and informed me that there were an abundance of patients these days, as well as some upcoming seminars and conferences that required her presence. I tried to make up for her absence with our son. I'd come home early to spend more time with him. His parents' time is becoming increasingly valuable as he grows older. I would also cook dinner, so Christina wouldn't have to work when she returned from the hospital. She would simply come home, eat dinner and go to sleep. She hardly spent any time with me or our son. This was something that upset me. I've always wanted to give her some quality time. I never wanted him to feel neglected by any of his parents. I tried to talk about it with Christina, but she became defensive and did not understand my point. Rather, she told me not to bother her again with this subject. I was surprised to hear such words from her, as they were the least expected within the next few days. Her aura had completely changed. She would rarely be seen at home before nightfall. Almost every day she ate dinner outside. She completely ignored our son. She never wanted to be near him or give him a goodnight kiss alongside me. She would either not speak at all or simply be cold. I was upset by this behavior. I attempted to start a discussion, but she was not interested. She was always saying, "Not today. Please. I'm busy on her days off." She would say, "Not today. Please. I need to relax." I was expected to arrive late one day for a meeting with a foreign group. I dropped our son off at my parents' and informed them that Christina would pick him up in the evening. I also reminded Christina before leaving for work and she nodded. After the meeting I called Christina to see if she was back, but she did not answer. Then I called my mother to see if my son had been picked up at their home. There was no response to this either. I left the office and went home, only to discover that the door was locked and Christina had not returned yet. It was 10 p.m. I drove to my parents' house. In case she was there, Christina was not present, which surprised me. My son was still playing with his grandmother. I was concerned and curious at the same time. I called her again, but her phone was switched off. I called the hospital receptionist but received no response. I felt frustrated and angry. I picked up my son and headed home. I didn't want to upset my mother because Christina wouldn't be home until late at night. Back at home, I gave John his nighttime milk and put him to sleep early in the morning. When I awoke, Christina was on the sofa in the lounge. She'd been sleeping there without changing her scrubs. I refrained from waking her and instead waited for her to get up on her own. It was Sunday. After an hour or she awoke, I inquired about her whereabouts last night. She didn't bother to respond to me. Rather, I got up and entered the room. Her reaction was completely bizarre. I got angry and went behind her to ask again. She yelled at me for being nosy and asked to be left alone. She claimed that I was doubting her. She began crying and locked herself in a room. I waited outside. I was also very angry. My blood was boiling. She was the one who had been gaslighting the situation all along, and now she was being defensive. After nearly 4 hours, she unlocked the door and exited the room. She sat near me and apologized for her actions. She told me she was preoccupied with the tiring work at the hospital. She had to give in her full-time duties these days and she was hoping for a promotion, and she needed to maintain control over both the management staff and the patients. Her reputation at the hospital earned her the position of department head. She only needed to incorporate some managerial traits to fully meet the requirements of the position. Her explanations brought me some relief. I just told her I missed my wife. I informed her that she had fully admitted herself to the hospital, leaving me alone. I also mentioned that I wanted her to be there for our son, who had also been missing his mother. He waited for her all day and had to sleep without his mother present. Christina acknowledged my concerns and stated that she would work to balance things between the hospital and her family. She assured me that the promotions would be finalized the following week and that she would be relieved of that responsibility. She said the rest of her time would be spent in ours. Christina's assurances were undoubtedly sufficient to persuade anyone to think differently than I did, but my mind would not let me rely on them. But somewhere deep down, I believe she has changed. She's no longer the same person. I'm trying to remain calm for the time being, but I'm not going to let this slide. Instead, I'm devising my own methods to uncover the truth. I apologize. I hope I can sense your distress and confusion. It sounds like you two aren't on the same page. It's difficult when there is a noticeable shift in a partner's behavior. Her dedication to her career and pursuit of a promotion can be demanding. However, it appears that there is something going on. Trust is a delicate element in any relationship, and rebuilding it frequently requires ongoing communication, transparency, and mutual effort. Update for the first few days following the last confrontation. She was also kind to me and John. The following week was extremely busy for her. She would leave home early in the morning and return at midnight or later. A day came when she did not return home and texted me that she would be staying in the hospital that day because work was at its peak. I proved to be a supportive husband at that time for our son. My parents proved to be the best babysitters. I managed both the office and the home. The week seemed to last months. It was difficult to pass each day. We somehow got through it. A day before the promotion was announced, Christina unexpectedly returned home early. I was astounded. As I entered the lounge, I noticed a man standing behind her. He was a tall, attractive young man, but I was meeting him for the first time. She informed me that he was there to assist her with some remaining tasks. They entered the study room. I picked up her son and took him to my parents. Christina called a few hours later to tell me she was free. I returned home with our son. We finally had dinner together after a long time, but Christina was preoccupied with other thoughts. When asked, she explained that she was just nervous about the big day ahead. Despite my irritation, I attempted to console her because she appeared to be concerned about her career. That evening after dinner, I kissed her and she unexpectedly kissed me back that night. The next morning I drove her to the hospital. My motivational speech to her lasted the entire journey, and I reminded her to call me as soon as the ceremony was over. That was a difficult day to spend at work. I had ordered a cake with congratulations written on it. I took a short break from work that day to go find a gift for her. She called me in the afternoon and asked me to pick her up at 600. I finished my work before that and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, the receptionist informed me that Christina was not available right now and that I should wait in her cabin for a while to pass the time. I began scrolling through her computer, completely unaware of the impending disaster. While scrolling through her computer, I came across some oddly named files. I wouldn't have opened it if it hadn't been given such strange names. I'm not sure why, but my heart rate increased as I opened that file. To my utter shock, several videos and photos emerged. It was Christina and that man who visited my house and the other day they were making out. It was unbelievable. Suddenly my eyes fell upon a camera monitor placed there. I turned it on to see the footage recorded a few weeks ago. Many of those revealed the true side of Christina. She was involved in a sexual relationship with that man in her office not only once, but multiple times. I did not know how to react. My mind was numb. My fingers frozen and unable to close the screen. The video repeated, and with each turn my blood boiled more. I can now relate to everything that happened between us. Christina's bizarre situations and reactions suddenly made sense. It took me a few seconds to regain my senses. I was so enraged that I wanted to return what she had given me right. Then I started thinking about how to repay her. I printed out the pictures and screenshots from the footage right in the office. I grabbed the tape and went out into the corridor. I wanted to post her pictures in the hospital corridors, but then I considered being held personally responsible for such an act. So I returned to her cabin. It was nearly 8 p.m. There was no sign of her return. Every passing minute fueled my rage. I slammed the computer screen in rage. I wanted to humiliate Christina in front of everyone, including her friends and family. So I paused my plan to use these printouts. Rather, I created a screen recording and sent it to both sides' family groups, mine and her. The group was dead silent, with not a single person responding. I'm sure they would have had several separate conversations and phone calls after all. I give them an excuse to gossip. Christina returned to the hospital from her conference about 2 hours later and discovered my presence at the reception. I couldn't wait any longer and threw the printouts at her face. Christina stood there, stunned, clutching the bouquet, her face smeared with tears, reflecting her feelings of regret and guilt. She began to explain, stumbling over her words, as she recalled the sequence of events that had led her astray. She was just crying and saying how sorry she was and how she never intended to do such a thing. But she was swayed away. She slept with that man to get the promotion. Her former partner served on the hospital's managing committee. He was a prominent figure in the hospital. So when he developed a liver problem, he went to Christina for treatment because she was an inexperienced doctor. Her diagnosis necessitated long-term care, and during that time they got close. Christina used him to advance in his career, and in return he literally climbed on her. Christina cried as she held my hand. She stated that it was purely transactional and not emotional. Her reasoning disgusted me. I left her cabin. She tried to hold my hand as I was leaving, but I dismissed her. I held all of the remaining pronouns in my hands. I briefly visited the reception area before leaving. Each of these was enough to ruin her reputation at the hospital. I went directly to my parents to pick up my son. Everyone was waiting for me and had many questions, but I was unable to respond or explain anything. I simply told them that what they had witnessed in the group was the bitter reality of our lives. Then I picked up my son and returned to our home. Christina eventually returned home. She begged me to forgive and give her a fresh start. She apologized and promised to make things right. My plans had changed. I could not even consider resuming my relationship with her. I couldn't understand how this was my fault. Despite her strange reactions, I had always tried to be the best husband possible. I maintained my resolve. I told her to get her belongings and leave my house. She would soon receive her divorce papers. She tried to plead with me through her tears, but she realized I was deaf. When she was certain there was no other option, she packed her belongings and left. Later I received a call from her sister who stated that her parents were sorry for Christina's cheating, but they were also upset that I had posted those photos on the family group where some close cousins were also present. They have shared these photos with other relatives who are not part of the group. Christina and her family became the subject of gossip within their family. I said it wasn't my responsibility to restore their family's reputation after their own daughter went my life. She stated that their parents have asked Christina not to return home because they do not want to be further ridiculed in their social circle. Christina was living with a friend. To make matters worse, the hospital's management fired her, leaving her unemployed and without a source of income. I don't feel anything for her anymore, because I've suffered enough in this relationship to feel sympathy for her. I apologize. You truly did your best to make this work and you've handled it so gracefully. Not to mention the ideal father for your son. Sharing the truth with Christina and your own families was undoubtedly a difficult decision. But this is understandable and well deserved on her part, given what she's put you and your son through. He treated her like gold and provided her with unwavering support. I am sorry she did this to you. In return, I wish you strength and resilience in the days ahead. Here is the next story. The numbers on the financial report blurred before my eyes as I stared at them for what seemed like the 800th time I rubbed my temples to relieve the looming headache. The San Francisco skyline stretched beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows in my office, a constant reminder of how far I had come. My phone buzzed, interrupting my concentration. Liam's name flashed across the screen. I picked up. I'm grateful for the distraction. Liam, what up? I asked, leaning back in my seat. Alex, I'm not sure how to tell you this. Liam's voice crackled through the speaker, tense and tentative. I sat up straight, suddenly alert. What is it? What is wrong? It's Laura. He spoke his words careful and measured. I saw her in the Pacific Crest Hotel. She was not alone. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean? She was not alone. Who was she with? There was a pause and I could almost hear Liam steeling himself. She was with Dylan Mitchell. Name hit me like a punch to the gut. Dylan Mitchell. The man I'd fired for harassment. The man who nearly cost me everything with his unethical behavior. And now he was with my wife. Are you sure? I demanded, my voice low and controlled, despite the rage building inside me. Positive, Liam replied. I saw them going together. They looked close. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. How long ago was this? About an hour ago. I debated whether to tell you, but you're my friend. Alex, you deserve to know you did the right thing. I said my mind already, racing with possibilities. Thank you. Liam, what are you going to do? He asked, concern evident in his voice. I stood up, grabbing my jacket from the back of my chair. I'm going to find out the truth. Alex, be careful. Don't do anything rash. I won't, I assured him, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. I'll call you later. I ended the call and drove out from my office, nodding curtly to my assistant as I passed. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the day. I told her, not waiting for a response in the elevator. I leaned against the wall, trying to process what I just learned. Laura, in the countryside. Laura, my wife of 10 years, the woman I built my life with, was at a hotel with another man. And not just any man, but Dylan Mitchell, a snake who nearly brought down my company with his actions. As I walked through the lobby, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Laura, working late tonight. Don't wait up. The lie's done. More than I expected. I typed out a quick reply. Okay. Take care. My hands shook as I got into my car. I gripped the steering wheel, took a deep breath and pulled out onto the busy San Francisco streets. The Pacific Crest Hotel wasn't far, but every minute felt like an eternity. As I drove, memories of Laura and I flooded my mind. Our first date, our wedding day, the nights we'd spent planning our future together. Had it all been a lie? How long had this been going on? I pulled into the hotel parking lot, finding a spot with a clear view of the entrance. And then I waited, my heart pounding in my chest, hoping against hope that Liam had been mistaken. But as the minutes ticked by, a cold certainty settled over me. I knew deep in my gut that what Liam had said was true. The only question now was what I was going to do about it. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out my old digital camera. It wasn't much, but it would do for recording evidence if I needed it. Then I settled in to wait, my eyes never leaving the hotel entrance an hour passed, feeling like an eternity, just as I was beginning to wonder if they'd somehow slip past me. I saw them, Laura, her blonde hair catching the late afternoon sun, and beside her, Dylan Mitchell, his hand resting on the small of her back. My breath caught in my throat as I watched them laughing and talking intimately. I raised the camera, my hand steady, despite the turmoil inside me, and began to record through the lens. I saw her reach up and straighten Mark's tie, her fingers lingering on his chest. He leaned in, whispering something in her ear that made her throw her head back in laughter. It was a scene I'd witnessed 1 time before, but always with me in Dylan's place. The familiarity of it twisted into this betrayal made my stomach churn. I lowered the camera, having seen enough for a moment. I sat in my mind a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, betrayal, and, beneath it all, a cold, hard resolve. I got out of the car, my movements deliberate and controlled. As I approached them, I saw the exact moment Laura spotted me. Her eyes widened in shock, then quickly narrowed her expression, hardening into something I'd never seen before. "Alex," she said, her voice cool and collected. "What are you doing here?" I looked between her and Dylan, noting how they'd moved apart, but not far enough. "I believe I should ask you that question, Laura." Dylan had the decency to appear uncomfortable, but there was a hint of defiance in his eyes. "Alex, this is not as it appears." I gave a harsh laugh. "Really? Because it appears that my wife is having an affair with the man I fired for sexual harassment. Please explain what it actually is." Laura's face flushed with anger. "Oh, not be dramatic, Alex. We're just friends." I repeated, my tone tinged with sarcasm. "Is that what you're calling it? Do all your friends book hotel rooms in the middle of the day? You are jumping to conclusions." Laura snapped. "But then again, that has always been your problem, hasn't it? You could never see beyond your own assumptions." Her words sting, but I wouldn't let it show. "I think I'm seeing things clearly right now. How long has this gone on, Laura? Did it happen before or after I fired him?" Dylan stepped forward. His hands were raised in a pleading gesture. "Look, Alex, we did not intend for this to happen. It's just say nothing." I growled and glared at him. "You do not get to speak. You're lucky. I don't knock you out right now." Laura moved between us, her eyes filled with rage. "Don't you dare to threaten him, Alex. This is not his fault." "No," I inquired, my voice dangerously low. "Whose fault is it, Laura?" "Because from where I'm standing, you both appear guilty." She straightened up, directly meeting my gaze. "Do you want to know whose fault it is? It is yours, Alex. You and your constant preoccupation with work, your emotional unavailability, your inability to see anyone's needs other than your own." Her words struck me like physical blows, each one intended to cause harm. But beneath the pain, the cold anger was brewing. "So that justifies this." I gestured between them. "My shortcomings as a husband give you the right to violate our marriage vows." Laura's laughter was bitter. "Wedding vows? Please, Alex. Our marriage has been over for a long time. You were simply too blind to see it." I stepped back, feeling exhausted. "If this is how you feel, don't bother coming home. I'll have your belongings delivered to wherever you're staying." Laura's eyes flashed with uncertainty for the first time. "Alex, please wait." But I had already turned away. I looked at Dylan, who was watching our conversation with a mix of guilt and defiance. "And you," I spoke in a low, dangerous tone, "you're going to regret this. Both of you will." I walked away, ignoring Laura's calls behind me, and got into my car. I could see them in my rearview mirror. Laura gesticulated wildly as she spoke to Dylan. I didn't care what she said. I only cared about getting as far away from them as possible. The drive home was a blur. My mind raced with memories of Laura and me. Happy memories are tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. How long was this going on? How many lies did she tell me? As I pulled into my driveway, the view of the San Francisco Bay did nothing to calm my nerves. I sat in the car for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Finally, I made it inside. The sill of the empty house struck me like a physical force. Everything looked the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. I walked straight to the bar in the living room and poured myself a generous measure of scotch. The amber liquid burned as it went down, but I welcomed the sensation. Anything to dull the pain of betrayal. As I stood there staring out at the bay, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. How did it go? Are you okay? I typed out a quick reply. You are right. It is over. I'll call you tomorrow. I turned off my phone, not wanting to deal with anyone else right now. Instead, I made my way to my home office, scotch in hand. Sitting down at my desk, I opened my laptop and pulled up the security footage from the day. I fired Dylan there. He was cornering Megan in the break room. His body language is aggressive, intimidating. I was furious back then, but seeing him with Laura made me even angrier. He had not just disrespected my company and its employees. He disrespected my marriage. You'll pay for this, Dylan, I muttered as I closed the laptop. Both of you will. I reached for the telephone on my desk, dialing a number that I knew by heart. Rebecca Wilson is speaking. Rebecca, my lawyer spoke in a crisp, professional voice. It's Alex Grant. I need your help. It's about my marriage and the prenuptial agreement. There was a pause at the other end of the line. I see, Rebecca said, her tone softening slightly. I apologize. Alex, what happened? I took a deep breath, preparing myself to say the words aloud. Laura has been having an affair with Dylan Reno LDS. Dylan Mitchell. Rebecca's voice became sharper. Is this the same Dylan Mitchell that you fired for harassment? The exact same. I confirmed by taking another sip of scotch. I see, Rebecca said again, and I could hear papers rustling in the background. Given the circumstances and the prenuptial agreement you and Laura signed, this actually benefits you. Alex. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a tinge of satisfaction for the first time since Liam's call. How is this so? The infidelity clause, Rebecca explained it, states that in the event of adultery, the faithful spouse will retain the majority of the assets. Given that you have evidence of Laura's affair, she won't receive much in the divorce settlement. Good. I said, my voice harsh. Alex, she doesn't deserve a penny. Rebecca's voice was gentle yet firm. I understand you're in pain right now, but we need to approach this logically. I will begin preparing the paperwork in the meantime. Do not confront Laura again. Do not give her any ammunition to use against you. I nodded, even though she was unable to see me. Understood. Thank you, Rebecca. I will be in touch. As I hung up the telephone, I felt a sense of purpose that cut through my pain and anger. Laura and Dylan believed they could betray me and get away with it. They were about to discover how wrong they were. I looked up the CCTV footage of Dylan harassing Megan. Again, an idea is forming in my mind. It wasn't just about my divorce anymore. This was about justice, about making sure Dylan was held accountable for his past and present actions. I picked up the phone again and dialed Megan's number. It was time to put my plan into motion. As the telephone rang, I braced myself for what was coming. The betrayal had cut deep, but I refused to let it destroy me. Instead, I'd use it for fuel. Laura and Dylan were driving me forward in my quest for vengeance, unaware of what was to come. However, they would soon realize that crossing Alex Grant was the biggest mistake of their lives. The morning after my confrontation with Laura and Dylan, I awoke with a pounding headache and a burning desire for vengeance. I went to the kitchen and brewed a strong cup of coffee to clear my mind. While sipping the bitter liquid, I pulled out my phone and dialed our Carter number. It rang several times before she answered hello. Her voice sounded hesitant. Megan, this is Alex Grant. Do you have a moment to speak? There was a pause. Mr. Grant, is everything fine? I took a deep breath. Not really. Megan. I need to talk about something important with you. This is about Dylan Mitchell. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. What about him? I understand what he did to you. Megan. I have CCTV footage from that day. I'd like to help you file charges against him. I do not know. Mr. Grant. I've tried to put it behind me. I understand. Megan. But Dylan has not changed. He continues to cause harm to others. Don't you think it's time he faced the consequences of his actions? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Megan spoke. Mr. Grant, what exactly are you proposing? I will cover all legal fees. You will not have to worry about anything. I will be there for you every step of the way. Why are you doing this right now? Megan inquired, her voice full of suspicion. I hesitated before deciding on honesty. Dylan has been having an affair with my wife. I want him to pay for everything he has done. Oh, Megan's voice was soft. I apologize. Mr. Grant. Thank you. Megan. Will you consider my offer another pause? Could I think about it? This is a lot to process. Of course. Take as much time as you need. Just know that I'm here to help. After hanging up the phone with Megan, I focused on Laura's finances. I needed someone discreet and thorough to investigate her affairs. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Marcus Fisher's number, a private investigator I had previously used for corporate matters. Marcus answered the phone after hearing it ring twice. Fisher is speaking. Marcus. This is Alex Grant. Mr. Grant, I have a job for you. Always a pleasure. What can I do for you? I need you to look into my wife's finances specifically. Any recent investments or large transfers of funds. Marcus. His voice became serious. That's a delicate situation. Mr. Grant. Can I ask why she has been unfaithful? Marcus. Before I go through with a divorce, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. I see. Mr. Grant. I am sorry to hear that. I will start right away. How deep would you like me to dig? As deep as you can. Marcus. Investigate every possible avenue. Understood. I'll report back as soon as I have something substantial. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair. Satisfied. The pieces were falling into place. Dylan and Laura believed they could betray me without consequences. They were about to discover how mistaken they were. My phone vibrated with a text from Megan. I have thought about it. I intend to press charges. When can we meet? I smiled as I typed my response. How about lunch today? I will send you the details. The rest of the morning was a blur of phone calls and emails. I was setting the stage for my vengeance. Be careful not to let my emotions cloud my judgment. At noon, I met Megan at a quiet restaurant close to my office. She appeared nervous, fidgeting with her napkin as I sat down. Thank you for meeting me. Megan, I said, hoping to put her at ease. She nodded. Her eyes darted around the restaurant. Are you certain about this, Mr. Grant? It has been a long time since it occurred. I'm sure. Megan, what Dylan did was wrong and he must face the consequences. Are you ready to tell me exactly what happened that day? Megan took a deep breath, then began to speak as she recounted the details of Dylan's harassment. I felt my anger rising again by the time she finished. My hands were clenched into fists under the table. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, Megan. But I promised you were going to make this right. She looked at me, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. What's the next step? I'll contact my lawyer. We'll set up a meeting to go over your statement and the evidence. Are you comfortable with that? Megan nodded slowly. I think so. Mr. Grant, thank you for believing me for doing this. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand reassuringly. You're welcome. Megan, we're in this together now. As I left the restaurant, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Dylan Mitchell was going to pay for his actions, both past and present. And Laura, well, she would soon learn the cost of her betrayal. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Found something interesting. Can we meet? I smiled. The game was on the next morning. I met Marcus at a discreet coffee shop downtown. He slid into the booth across from me, a thick folder in his hand. Mr. Grant. He nodded, his voice low. I've got some interesting findings about your wife's finance activities. I leaned forward, eager to hear what he discovered. What did you find, Marcus? He opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents. Mrs. Grant has been funneling a significant amount of money into a real estate venture in Napa Valley. It's a high-end condominium project, but from what I can tell, it's on shaky ground. How much are we talking about? I asked, my mind already racing with possibilities. Marcus slid a document across the table, nearly all of her personal savings plus a substantial loan. She's got everything riding on this project. I couldn't help but smile. This was exactly the kind of information I needed. Excellent work, Marcus. I need you to dig deeper. Find out who the primary investor is. I want to know everything about this project. Marcus nodded, jotting down notes. Consider it done, Mr. Grant. Anything else? Yes, I said, pulling out my phone. I need you to deliver this footage to Dylan Mitchell, current employer. I sent him the video file of Dylan harassing Megan. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's some pretty damning evidence. Mr. Grant, are you sure about this? I met his gaze steadily. Absolutely. It's time Dylan faced the consequences of his actions. After Marcus left, I headed to my office. I had a meeting with Rebecca and Megan to prepare for the legal proceedings against Dylan. Rebecca was already in my office when I arrived, going over some paperwork. She looked up as I entered. Alex, good morning. Are you prepared for this? I nodded and set my briefcase down. Rebecca, I'm more than ready. Is Megan here? Yet, as if on cue, a knock on the door. My assistant poked her head inside. Mr. Grant, Miss Carter is here. Send her in, please. I said this while standing to greet. Megan entered, nervous but determined. I motioned for her to take her seat. Megan, this is my lawyer, Rebecca Wilson. She will be handling your case. Rebecca smiled warmly at Megan. It is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Carter. I understand that this is a difficult situation, but please know that we are here to support you every step of the way. Megan nodded. Her voice was quiet yet steady. Thank you. I'm prepared to do this. We spent the next several hours reviewing Megan's statement and the evidence. Rebecca was meticulous in making sure we had every detail documented. As we finished, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. It's finished. The video was delivered to Reynolds' employer. I couldn't control the smile that spread across my face. Good news. I spoke to Rebecca and Megan. The evidence was delivered to Dylan's current employer. Megan's eyes widened. What do you believe will happen? Rebecca leaned forwards, her voice reassuring. Given the strength of the evidence, Dylan is likely to be fired immediately. This will also help our case in court. Megan nodded, a look of relief and anxiety on her face. I cannot believe this is actually happening. I put a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're doing the right thing, Megan. Dylan needs to be held accountable. Because Megan has left, Rebecca turned to me, her expression serious. Alex, I have to ask if this is just about justice for Megan. Is there more to it? I met her gaze steadily. Dylan betrayed me. Rebecca, he and Laura, they deserve what is coming to them. Rebecca sighed. I understand your pain, Alex, but take care. Do not let your desire for vengeance cloud your judgment. I nodded, but in my heart I knew it was too late to be cautious. Dylan and Laura had made their decisions. Now they would have to deal with the consequences over the next few weeks. Events moved quickly. Dylan was actually fired from his job. The scandal has made headlines in the local business community. The date of the court hearing arrived. I sat next to Megan, providing silent support as she testified about Dylan's harassment. When it came time for me to testify, I spoke clearly and confidently, using CCTV footage to back up Megan's story. Dylan's lawyer attempted to portray the situation as a misunderstanding, but the evidence was overwhelming. As we left the courthouse, I felt a surge of satisfaction.
As the judge announced the verdict which found Dylan guilty and imposed severe legal penalties,
Megan turned to face me. There were tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Grant. I could not have done it without you. I gently squeezed her hand. You did it, Megan. You stood up for yourself. I am proud of you. As Megan walked away, I noticed Dylan being led out in handcuffs. Our gazes met and I witnessed the moment he realized the full scope of what had occurred. His face turned pale and for a moment I thought he was sick. I approached him with a low voice that only he could hear. Dylan, I warned you that would come to regret. This is only the beginning. Dylan's eyes widened in terror, but before he could react, the officers led him away. I watched him leave, feeling a sense of grim satisfaction. One down, one to go. Lara was next, followed by Dylan dealt with. I focused my full attention on Lara. Marcus had provided information about her real estate venture, including the name of the primary investor, Gregory Stevens. I researched Gregory's business interests and reputation in the industry. Then I placed the call. Gregory Stevens is speaking. A gruff voice responded. Mr. Stevens, this is Alex Grant. I believe you're working on a real estate project with my wife, Lara Grant. There was a pause at the other end of the line. That is correct, Mr. Grant. Is there an issue? I took a deep breath. I steeled myself for what was about to happen. I'm afraid there is, Mr. Stevens. I have some information about Lara that I believe you should know before you go any further with this investment. I am listening, Gregory replied, his tone cautious. Lara has been engaging in some questionable behavior lately. She's been unfaithful in our marriage, demonstrating a lack of judgment which I believe extends to her business dealings as well. I could almost hear Gregory's frown over the phone. That is a serious accusation. Mr. Grant, what evidence do you have for this? I have photographic evidence of her infidelity, Mr. Stevens. But more importantly, I am concerned about her business act. Has she given you the full financial projections for this project? There was a prolonged pause. She presented some projections. Yes, are you saying they're incorrect? I'm suggesting that Lara may lack the necessary experience or judgment to manage a project of this size. I've been reviewing her financial records and I'm seriously concerned about the venture's viability. Gregory's voice hardened. Mr. Grant, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll need to investigate this further. Of course, Mr. Stevens. I simply felt it was my duty to inform you. I would not want to see a respected businessman like yourself involved in a potentially disastrous venture. After hanging up the phone, I sat back in my chair, a mix of guilt and satisfaction swirling in my stomach. I knew what I was doing would devastate Lara, but the memory of her betrayal fortified my determination. Days passed as I waited for the other shoe to drop. Lara made a furious phone call. What did you do? She screamed. As soon as I picked up hello to you. Lara, I replied calmly. What appears to be the problem? Alex, don't play dumb with me. Gregory Stevens backed out of the project. He expressed concern about my judgment and the venture's viability. What have you said to him? I paused to carefully consider my words. I just told him the truth. Lara, that you have demonstrated poor judgment in your personal life and that this may extend to your business dealings as well. You bastard, Lara kissed. You have ruined everything. How could you do this to me? How could I, repeated my tone rising. Lara, how could you betray our marriage? Did you think there would be no consequences? Lara spoke again, eliciting stunned silence on the other end of the line. Her voice was cold. Alex, you're going to regret this. I swear you will. I do not think so. Lara, you made your choices. Now you have to live with them. I hung up, my heart pounding. I knew this wasn't over, but for now I'd won. Lara's project was in ruins. Her reputation tarnished. She was feeling just a fraction of the pain she caused me. As I sat there staring out at the San Francisco skyline, I couldn't help but wonder what the cost of my revenge would be. But it was too late to turn back now. I'd set this in motion and I would see it through. To the end. My phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Laura's lawyer reached out. They want to discuss terms of the divorce. Are you prepared? Prepared for this? I typed out a quick reply. More than ready, set it up. The final confrontation was coming. It was time to end this once and for all. The morning air was crisp. As I walked into my office, I knew Laura would be coming today. Rebecca had informed me that Laura's lawyer had reached out demanding a meeting. I was ready for this final confrontation. As I settled at my desk, my assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Grant, Laura is here to see you. I took a deep breath. Send her in. The door burst open and Laura stormed in, her face a mask of fury. You bastard. How dare you? I leaned back in my chair, maintaining a calm facade. Good morning to you too. Laura. Please have a seat. She remained standing, her hands clenched at her sides. Don't play games with me. Alex, I know what you did. You sabotaged my project. I met her gaze steadily. I merely informed Mr. Stevens of some concerns I had about the project's viability. If that led to him withdrawing his funding, well, perhaps your business plan wasn't as solid as you thought. Laura slammed her hands on my desk. Cut the crap. Alex, you deliberately ruined me. Why? Because I harmed your precious ego. I rose slowly, my voice low and controlled. No, Laura, was in the thirst. Because you betrayed our marriage. Because you chose to abandon 10 years of partnership for a fling with a man who has no regard for women or ethics. Please do not pass judgment on me. Laura hissed. You were never present. Constantly working. Always focused on your valuable company. What was I supposed to do? I shake my head. You could have spoken to me. You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you decided to lie and cheat. Laura laughed bitterly. Oh please. As if you'd listened. You've never listened. I'm listening now. I replied quietly. So tell me, Laura, was it worthwhile? Was it worth destroying our marriage for a few EXC? Moments with Dylan. She faltered for a moment, her anger giving way to something resembling regret, but it disappeared in an instant. Cold fury has taken its place. Do you think you have won? You think you can ruin my life and then walk away? I reached into my desk drawer and took out a folder. No, Laura, was in the first line. I do not think I have won. I believe we've both lost, but now is the time to put an end to this. I slid the folder across the desk towards. She opened it. Her eyes widened as she noticed the contents. Divorce papers. You cannot be serious. I'm very serious. I responded. Given the circumstances, the terms will appear to be quite generous. The prenuptial agreement ensures that I retain the majority of our assets, but I'm willing to provide you with a settlement that will allow you to start over. Laura's hands shook. She thumbed through the papers. Here it is. This is nothing compared to what I am entitled to. I leaned forward. WS. This is more than you deserve, given your infidelity and the money you've lost in your failed venture. My lawyer assures me that if we take this to court, you'll most likely receive far less. She looked at me, her eyes filled with anger and disbelief. How could you do this to me? Alex, how could you do this to me after everything we've been through? Laura, listen. I counted actions of consequences. It's time to face yours. Laura sank into the chair, looking defeated. I never intended it to go this far, she whispered. I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was quickly suppressed. But it did, and now we must deal with the fallout. She looked up at me. There are tears in her eyes. What will happen now? I sat back down, my voice softened slightly. You sign the paperwork. We go our separate ways. You and I both get a fresh start. I continue on with my life. Laura wiped her eyes and spoke bitterly. Just like that. 10 years of marriage over. I shake my head. It ended the moment you decided to break our vows. Laura, this is just making things official. She took a long look at the papers before reaching for a pen. I suppose I don't have many options. Do I? There's always a choice. I replied quietly. This is the result of your actions. Laura signed the papers with a shaky hand before standing up. I hope you're happy. Alex, I hope destroying me gives you the satisfaction you seek. As she approached the door, I called out Laura's name. She paused, not turning around. I'm sorry it came to this. Truly. She let out a short, humorless laugh. No, you're not. But thanks for saying it anyway. With that, she was gone, leaving me alone with the signed divorce papers and a hollow feeling in my chest. I picked up my phone and dialed Rebecca's number. It's finished, I said. When she answered, Laura signed the papers. Good. Rebecca replied, I'll file them right away. The court should process them quickly, given the circumstances. Are you okay, Alex? I sighed. I'm fine. It needed to be done all right. I'll keep you updated on the proceedings. Take care of yourself, Alex. As I hung up, I stared out the window at the San Francisco skyline. The life I had known was over. It was time to figure out what came next. Months passed and the divorce was finalized. Without much fanfare, I threw myself into my work, expanding my business empire, with a ferocity that surprised even me. New ventures, emerging technologies, anything that could keep my mind occupied and push me forward. One afternoon, as I was reviewing plans for a new tech startup I was considering investing in, my phone rang. It was my sister, Sophia Li. She said when I picked up, Please tell me you're not working on a Saturday. I glanced at the clock, surprised to see it was indeed the weekend. I lost track of time. I guess Sophia sighed. That's it. I'm coming over. You need to get out of that office and remember what sunlight looks like. Before I could protest, she had hung up. An hour later she was at my door, practically dragging me out of the house. We ended up at a small cafe in the park, the sun warming my face as we sat at an outdoor table. So Sophia said, stirring her latte. How are you really doing? Li. I shrugged. I'm fine. Business is booming. We're looking at expanding into AI and machine learning. Sophia reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's not what I asked, and you know it. How are you doing? I sighed, finally meeting her eyes. I don't know. Jess. Some days I feel like I'm on top of the world. Other days, you wonder if it was all worth it. She finished for me. I nodded something like that. Sophia leaned back, studying me. You know, it's okay to admit that you're hurting. What Laura did, it would break anyone. I'm not broken, I said. Perhaps too quickly. No, you're not, Sophia. Agreed. But you're not whole either. Not yet, yeah. But you will be. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. You know, just watching people pass by in the park. Sophia finally said something. There is more to life than work. Li. When was the last time you did something purely for fun? I thought about it and realized I couldn't recall. I'm not sure. Sophia grins. That settles it. We'll start having weekly sibling outings. No work. Talk aloud. I couldn't help smiling. That sounds nice. Good. She said this while standing up because our first excursion begins now. Come on. I'd like to check out a new art exhibit. As we walked through the park, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders for the first time in several months. I was not thinking about work, Laura, or revenge. I was simply enjoying the moment with my sister. Over the next few weeks, I found myself looking forward to our outings with Sophia. We tried new restaurants. We went hiking in Mule Woods and even attempted a pottery class, with hilariously disastrous results. During one of our coffee meetups, Sophia proposed an idea. You know, Li, you've learned so much from this entire experience. Have you ever considered mentoring young entrepreneurs? I raised an eyebrow. Mentoring Jess. I'm not sure. I'm cut out for that. She rolled her eyes. Please. You created a successful business empire from the ground up. You've been through personal and professional storms. You have insights that can be extremely beneficial to those who are just getting started. I've been molded over. I suppose I could try it. But where would I start? Sophia's eyes lit up. Lead it to me. My friend runs a startup incubator. I will put you in touch. Sophia kept her word and connected me with her friend. And before I knew it, I was supposed to give a presentation to a group of young entrepreneurs, standing in front of their eager faces. I felt nervous in a way I hadn't in years. But as I began to speak, sharing my experiences and insights, I felt a different kind of energy. Success is more than just making money. I explained that it is about creating something meaningful that can withstand the storms of life, and believe me, there will be thunderstorms. Following the conversation, a young woman approached me. Mr. Grant, I just wanted to thank you for your story. It truly inspired me. I smiled. I felt a warmth that I had not felt in a long time. I'm glad I could help. What is your startup idea? As she excitedly explained her idea for a sustainable fashion app, I became genuinely interested, making suggestions and asking questions. That night, while driving home, I realized I felt more alive than I had in months. The thrill of assisting these young entrepreneurs and passing on what I learned. It was a different kind of satisfaction than what I received from my vengeance. I picked up the phone and called Sophia. Hey Jess, I believe you were correct about the mentoring thing. I'd like to do more of it. I could hear a smile in her voice as she responded. I knew you'd love it. How I see. There is life after divorce. As I hung up the phone, I looked out my living room window at the San Francisco skyline. For the first time since Laura betrayed me, I felt truly content. I had survived the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. The previous few months had been a blur of new experiences and viewpoints. My weekly outings with Sophia rekindled my enthusiasm for life outside of work. The mentoring sessions with young entrepreneurs gave me a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as I was getting ready for another mentoring session, my phone rang. It was Rebecca Alex. She said, her voice cautious. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Not at all. I replied, what's up, Rebecca? There was a pause before she continued. I thought you should know Laura reached out to me. I felt the tightness in my chest. Oh, what did she want? She asked if you would be willing to meet with her. She says she wants to apologize. I sat down heavily in my chair. I see. And what do you think I should do? Rebecca sighed honestly. Alex, I think you should hear her out. Not for her sake, but for yours. It might give you the closure you need. I mulled it over for a moment. You might be right. Okay. Tell her. I'll meet her, but on my terms. The next day, I found myself sitting in a quiet corner of a cafe waiting for Laura. When she walked in, I was struck by how different she looked. Gone was the polished businesswoman I had known. She seemed humble. Alex, she said softly as she sat down. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. You wanted to talk. So talk. Laura took a deep breath. I wanted to apologize for everything what I did. It was unforgivable. I see that now. Why now? I inquired about my voice level. It has been months. Laura, she gazed down at her hands. I've had a lot of time to consider the consequences of my actions. Not just you, but also myself. I've lost everything. Alex, my marriage, my career. My self-esteem. Hearing her words caused me to experience a range of emotions. A part of me wanted to lash out to her, like she had hurt me. However, another part felt a strange sense of calm. Finally, I expressed my gratitude to Laura for her apology. But you're correct. You did something unforgivable. She nodded with tears in her eyes. I understand. I do not expect forgiveness. Alex, I just wanted you to know that. I now understand. And I sincerely apologize. We sat silently for a moment. The weight of our shared history rests between us. What are you going to do now? I asked. I surprised myself with the question. Laura gave a small, sad smile. I'm starting over, new city, new job. It isn't much, but it's an opportunity to rebuild. I nodded. I hope everything works out for you. Laura, I really do. Laura hesitated as we stood to leave Alex. For what it's worth, I'm pleased to see you doing well. You deserve to be happy. I watched her walk away with a sense of closure. I had no idea. I needed the anger and bitterness that had driven me for so long. It wasn't completely gone, but it had subsided, making space for something new. That night, as I prepared for my next mentoring session, I reflected on everything that had happened, the betrayal and revenge, the rebuilding. I had lost a lot, but I also gained something, a new perspective and a new purpose. As I stood in front of the young entrepreneurs, I felt a rush of energy. Today I began. I want to talk to you about resilience, about overcoming adversity and emerging stronger on the other side. Because avoiding storms isn't the goal in business or life. It's about how to dance in the rain. The room was silent. All eyes on me as I told my story. Not only have there been successes, but also failures, betrayal, setbacks, and, most importantly, lessons learned. As I concluded, a young man raised his hand. Mr. Grant, after everything you've gone through, have you any regrets? I paused to carefully consider the question. Regrets, no. Every experience, good or bad, has helped shape me into the person I am today. Do I wish things had gone differently? Of course, but I don't regret the decisions I made or the lessons I learned from the session. As I drove home, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time I was looking forward to it. I picked up the phone and called Sophia. Hey, Jess, how about we try that new sushi place on our next outing? As I hung up, I smiled to myself. Life goes on, and so will I, stronger, wiser, and prepared for whatever came next. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.